I want to thank our presenters for taking our questions. I wanted to ask you if I could. We have approximately, when we add all of our full-time staff and all of our part-time staff, we have perhaps just under 20,000 employees in our system. Is that a reasonable sum? And of that amount, perhaps 9,000 are engaged in classrooms and instructional activities. Is that a fair statement?
Anywhere from 8 to 9,000 range is correct.
Sure. And if we had to take a guess at the number of nurses who are tireless in working in our schools, would we say that the figure is under 200? Figure is at least one per school. Some have more than one, so we're talking about maybe 200 or so nurses.
Every school has one nurse. Some school may have a health assistant as well.
Sure. And all of these employees, all of our part-time, all of our full-time employees, our professional, our certificated folks, they all apply for their positions. Is that right?
That's correct.
And they would fill out an application, whether it's online or it's a paper application. Is that also correct?
Yes.
And on any of those means of application, whether it be online or whether it be in paper, does this system inquire as to any employee's religious faith?
No, you cannot ask that question.
And we don't. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, our students, we have approximately 113,000 students across our entire system. When students enroll, does our system at any point have any staff ask any families or any of our students what their religious faith is?
It should not.
And whether, if they even have a religious faith? Are you aware of any records with regard to religious faith for either our almost 20,000 staff members or almost 113,000 students that our system maintains?
No.
Safe to say we don't maintain them because that information is simply not captured at any point by any of our schools or our personnel.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, with regard to existing policy and staff who may have a faith and who may have a religious holiday, is there a mechanism in existing policy whereby a staff member may apply to have off from work? They don't have to report to school because of religious reasons. There is such a policy, isn't that right?
Yes.
And that policy is policy 4203.
Correct.
And that's, as I say, that's a current policy. Is that right?
That's correct.
And it doesn't just say the Jewish faith. It doesn't just say Muslims in our country. It doesn't identify any specific, by name, faith. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, with regard to our students who go to school every day, if a student and if their family, if it's a religious if it's a family that has a religious faith and there's a religious holiday, whatever that faith may be, is there a mechanism whereby the student can be excused to not go to school on a particular day for religious purpose?
That I would have to defer that to.
Well, there is one. It's 5120. That's the policy, and that policy actually refers to state law. And my recollection, having spoken briefly with the system's representative counsel today, is that in fact it makes reference to state law that permits this. So, without any action being done on any calendar that would provide any religious holidays, any student, any staff member could, on any religious holiday, under existing policies, apply not to come to school or apply not to come to work if they're one of our employees. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. Without us doing anything. Now, I want to compliment David, and I also want to compliment Howard Lippitt. And I say that because David brought us his personal experience. And he very clearly said that this was not being made on religious preference. The quote I wrote down was, this is about economics. And I can't read my handwriting. It looks like it's
relevant to the educational process.
Well, yeah, okay. So I'll accept that. The second part to it is, David didn't say, from his experience, from having lived across the school, from when this policy was when we first began incorporating these two religious holidays in our school calendar, David did not identify a specific number of staff or students. He very clearly did not say. And the second part to this is, could you just remind us when we first began recognizing these two holidays in our calendar? It's like 1994 or thereabouts?
1995 school year holidays.
And in those years, we had a superintendent. And it turns out that I had the occasion to talk with the superintendent. And I specifically asked him this question last year. I said, Dr. Berger, what, if any, quantification existed at the time the decision was made to incorporate these two religious holidays in the school calendar? His response was, none. That's why I compliment David. David was very clear. He gave his anecdotal experience from 2 decades ago, because it's been over 2 decades since we opened schools on these religious holidays. Howard Lippitt, in his remarks to me and my colleagues, said that this was not about respecting a religion. Howard practiced in the advocate's art, and I admire him for this. He said, the best available evidence supported his position. But he did not say the best evidence. And he did not say that there is evidence of specific statistics for either students or staff and their religious beliefs or worship patterns. God bless you, if I might say that in discussion. That being the case, coupled with what Dr. Berger said to me, I even called over another colleague who was with me from our board at the time, and Dr. Berger shared the same thing with him. I note, over 2 decades later, we have a significantly changed Baltimore County. The recession was not good to any place in our country, and it was very tough on families in our county. It has remained tough for citizens in our county. We have higher rates of poverty in our county. We have large, sizable populations of farm students in our county. Now, a farm student is a student that has qualified for a free and reduced meal at the school when schools are opened. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Which means when they come to school, they can get something to eat that day. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, when the school's not open, they don't get anything to eat that day. Their parents, if they work, struggling to get through, they have to make alternate arrangements for their children when schools are closed. And for many families, they have to hire daycare. They have to take money out of their pocket because they have to make these alternate arrangements because they love their children. But when our schools are closed, their children are not getting the benefit of that nutrition, and the family is taking potentially another hit on their finances. The district I come from, District 6, we have large numbers of Title I schools. We have large numbers of farm populations in elementary, middle, and high school. This is 2017. It is not 1994. As much as I respect David, and I believe his statements were very credibly made, and I believe Howard Lippitt's comments were very credibly made, there is a way, with existing policy, those staff who want to have off on a religious holiday can do it right now. Any religious holiday, whether it be these two holidays that are currently identified in Calendar B, or any other one. Secondly, any student can likewise have off, but schools are open, and those children who are farm students, they will be getting fed, and their parents won't have to find alternate means for daycare, pay out of their own pocket out of concern for the safety of their children when our schools are locked because of a vote of this board. I would encourage my colleagues, after their own thoughtful deliberation, to keep these thoughts in mind, to oppose not just this motion, but calendar B, and instead to vote for calendar A. Thanks.
All right, Mr. McDaniels.